The wolf? Okay,
wolf.
he's still alive.
Yes.
Now, how do you know that?
Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna say, look in his eyes.
I'm looking in his eyes.
Okay, if you look at the pictures, everyone's eyes are a little dull for me except his.
Okay. Oh, I see. His eyes are brighter.
Yes.
And that gives you a sense of life.
Yeah, well, he's probably dead now, but
Yes. Well, this is what's so interesting. Well, the people are all dead. Of course, we've talked about that before. When you're talking to me, we're dealing with dead people, and they're long dead, and sometimes they're, dead for 5 minutes in our storyline, but they've been long dead to us as a society, and still you're able to somehow negotiate that they're dead, but they're not quite dead as long as the other ones are dead. I mean, it just blows me away.
because I'm putting myself in that time frame. Okay.
Right.
I have
Okay.
to remove the energy I have here and move it over to the other time frame so I can have a look from that perspective, not from this perspective.
Wow. You could do that?
Yeah.
God, you're amazing. God, I'm just blown away. Oh. And now, RadioSidney presents Seeing Dead People, Episode 35, Massacre at Camp Bodom. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm actually peachy as usual. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Are you? Good.
Yeah.
Are you ready for an interesting experience tonight?
I believe I am.
And have you got any tinglings?
As usual, it's going to be a murder or something, right?
Yeah. Well, today we're going to embrace some Nordic noir crime. And that's a term they use to describe dark and disturbing crime from Scandinavia. So we're heading to Northern Europe, to the country known for many, many things. But for me, three key icons stand out. It has a distinctive flag, which sports a blue cross on a white background. It has a reputation for having the happiest residents, and people have a passion for embracing saunas. Any idea which Scandinavian country is on our flight path today?
I think there's only one that fits that bill, and that would be Finland. And here's the interesting part for you, because at the beginning of the week, I was talking to a friend about Finland and where, they're going on a trip there. But I was saying it would be neat because you can go to school for free.
Yes, they're very advanced in their education, in their healthcare system, all kinds of things. Yeah, oh, that's a funny coincidence. Okay. Well, yes, it is Finland, and it's the country is supposed to be famous for having 1,000 lakes, but in fact, Darcy, it has nearly 200,000. I think it's just a slogan. Very much like Canadians, the Finnish embrace nature and spend lots of time outdoors. In particular, they love fishing and boating and camping. Now, all of that is really light and wholesome, but of course, here on Seeing Dead People, we're dealing with the dark and the disturbed. So you guessed it, as you said earlier, we're about to stumble upon gruesome and brutal violence, which happened on the idyllic shores of one sparkling body of water called Lake Bodom. This lake is located just a little north and west of the Finnish capital of Helsinki. In fact, this unsolved mystery has become a cautionary tale for the Finnish people of a terrifying local murderous boogeyman. This phantom has haunted several generations of Finns and is told and retold in whispers around campfires to scare young people out of bad behavior. Getting any vibes yet, Darcy?
I'm sort of thinking, like the Hook guy.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of campfire boogeyman. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say, obviously, some sort of blade.
Oh, and you're just getting that because you're getting the sense of the hook?
Yeah, because I'm getting the sense of the hook, and as he pries open the top of your tin car. Okay, so.
Yeah, I love that one. Okay. Well, first I have to admit I don't speak Finnish, so my pronunciation will be a bit suspect. So, but let's situate ourselves, Darcy. Let's look at photo number 1, which is a Google Map screenshot of Finland, zoomed in to show us Lake Bodom as it relates to the capital Helsinki. So you see in the bottom right, Helsinki, and in the upper left, I've circled Lake Bodom in red. And near the bottom of the lake, I've added a purple X marks the spot for our exact location, which is a popular Finnish campground near the city of Espoo. Getting anything else happening there, Darcy?
Definitely someone's died there, but just out of curiosity, like, is there at least two, possibly three?
Yes. How do you get that little tingling?
Strangely enough, it's from the mark on your calendar, on your map.
You and you always take advantage of the marks on my map. It's amazing. They're just stupid marks. Is that why? Because it's a star and has 3 lines?
Yeah.
I wonder, is that, do you think, subconscious from my perspective that I put 3 there? No, right.
No.
Well, good for you. Okay. Well, I'm going to give you a better idea of the locale, Darcy. Look at photo number 2. It's a lovely shot of Lake Bodom in the summer.
Okay, that gave me the goosebumps.
Oh, really? Why?
Because looking out of it, it's like I'm standing there with the halo over my head looking out at the lake.
Why do you say halo over your head?
Because I would say that there's a lady here who has died.
Okay, interesting. All right. Well, let's look at photo number 3, which is taken in the winter. It's a picture roughly of where this exact incident took place over 6 decades ago. Now, this is a winter shot, so it's got a cold, bluish kind of coloring, and the winter timing is a bit more menacing looking from my perspective. Getting any deeper vibes here?
Well, one, and definitely a lady. Okay. I sort of feel like the other 2 possibly are men.
Okay.
One at least a man. There must be 2 ladies. Okay, am I wrong? Is it 2 ladies and a man, or?
You are correct.
Okay.
What I want, how do you know that's two gals and a man?
Because I can see, if you look where those branches are, I get the impression of 2 ladies standing. They're apart from each other. It's just this impression that's coming off.
I see trees.
I know you see trees, but I can feel the energy even this far away, and
Wow.
given the distance and the time frame.
Yeah, really. Wow. Oh, that's cool. Okay, well, you're right spot on there. Okay, now I'd like you to look at a key item which was removed from the crime scene, Darcy, in a black and white photo number 4. What do you see in that photo? Tell us what you see and feel.
Okay, it's a tent. It looks like it's been ripped up. And it's one of the old tents that you use the clothesline sort of idea for it. And was it burnt, or is it just totally been ripped? So there were 4 people in this tent, right?
Now, just because it's photo number 4, you're not saying that,
Nope.
right?
No,
Okay.
There's an image of a 4, like in my head there.
Okay.
You've got a bear. Okay, this is the way I describe it. You have a bear and a lion, a wolf, and a vulture. So 4 people.
A bear and a lion and a wolf and a vulture. Now, this is something you've never done before. Give us creatures in place of people.
Yeah. One of them I actually might want to change to a hummingbird.
Which one?
Probably what was the last one?
The vulture.
Yeah, change it to a hummingbird.
Okay. And are you actually,
I can see the creatures on the tent.
That's what you're seeing on the tent, these creatures. Yeah. Wow. Okay, I see like a crappy looking, ripped to shreds canvas tent. Okay, cool. Well, your 4 people is correct.
But not all 4 would have died. And the reason I'm saying that is because one of the animals doesn't have a stain on it.
Good grief, Darcy. You've stolen my thunder yet again. I don't know how you do this.
I don't know either.
Okay, that's remarkable. We'll get there, but you're saying to me, based on this white old looking, ripped up and stained canvas tent, you're seeing some kind of image of a bear, a lion, a wolf, and now a hummingbird.
Yeah. And yes. And what's really interesting is when I look at the tent, it's like this must have been one horrific crime, even though the tent doesn't, okay, it's ripped and stuff, it's old, depending on when they put this up, given their outfits out there, I'd say the early 60s.
Exactly, it's 1960.
It's the hairstyle.
Oh yeah, right, the guys in the back.
Yeah.
Right.
And but when I look at it, I am so nauseous. So it had to have been violent.
Okay, well, the rips are a hint. Let's look at the next photo, which is a little more vibrant, a little more vicious looking, a little more gruesome. Have a look at number 5 and describe this for us, Darcy.
Okay, there's 6 people standing around the area. The tent, they must have flipped it because this looks totally different than the rips on the other ones. But I'm pretty sure that's blood, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And it's definitely out in the bush where they were. And it's funny because talk about a time change. You would have had to wear booties and outfit and gloves, and none of them have any of that on.
Absolutely. A very different crime scene investigation, let's say. Yeah. Well, you're actually seeing the actual crime scene with some investigators surrounding it. They're examining a large, well, it was at one point white canvas tent, it looks like. They have repitched it to look at it, I believe, revealing terrible damage, as you said, from massive rips and tears and what appears to be extensive blood staining on the side, at least that's facing us. So, Darcy, you hinted at this earlier by saying you're feeling nauseous and it must be frenzied attack. Something unspeakable happened here, Darcy, in the early morning hours of June the 5th, 1960, nearly 63 years ago. Any clue specifically as to what happened here?
Well, it definitely feels, because I don't hear gun, okay, this would have had to been like, to me, a knife, something sharp, something heavy like a stick. It feels personal.
Okay.
Like a rage, like, when, not necessarily crime of opportunity, but maybe something similar to it. So it feels personal.
Okay. Well, you mentioned a lot of interesting things there. Obviously, the knife idea. You talked about that at the top of the show when you talked about the guy with the slasher knife. But what was the point about something heavy?
Well, like a stick, a hammer, something that I would have to hit someone with. Like, I guess out there, it could be stick, rock. There's definitely a blade involved.
Okay.
That much I can say. There's definitely a blade involved.
Okay, but you're saying not only is there a blade involved, there's a second object used to hurt people. Let's just say.
But I would say the second object would be after the fact.
All right, and that would be the classic blunt instrument of some sort.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, let's find out really what happened here. I'm going to show you 4 facial close-ups. These young people woke in the dark around 4:30-ish a.m., that's sort of a guesstimate, in absolute terror to be confronted by evil. And I'm dying to know what you know, because I can't believe already what you know. So let's get better acquainted with our cast of teenagers. We have 4 teenagers here, Darcy. Now, admittedly, the pics I'm about to show you are pretty poor and grainy, so this might be a bit of a challenge, but you can surmount it. You seem to be able to get through anything. So let's look up photo number 6 is our first photo. We have the face of a young gal named Ermelie Bjorklund. Tell us about Ermelie. She's 15 years of age.
She, even with the grainy thing, picture, she's beautiful, full of life. To me, a very caring person, could be very much in her mind in love.
Okay.
Okay. But she's not, like how some teenagers can be really like moody and everything. I'm not picking that off of her.
Okay. Is she alive or dead
Dead.
during this event? She's dead?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. Anything else about her?
I would say that she was well loved. I'm not picking up any idea that that she wasn't like, I don't think she was brutally, like she was killed, obviously, but I don't think she's the one I felt had the most injuries to.
Okay, so you're saying of the three people, one person, or sorry, of the four people, one person had more injuries than the others?
It feels like it, and I'll know when I see the other one.
Okay.
But right now, I would say it's not her.
Okay.
I don't think she's the target.
All right, then let's go to the next photo, which is photo number 7. And this is a photo of a young man. He's 18. His name is Niels Gustafsson. He is Ermeli's boyfriend. What can you tell me about Niels?
Okay, troubled soul.
Wow.
But he's still alive during all this.
Now, why do you say that?
I don't know yet. Well, I'll know for sure, like her, I'll know for sure as I get closer to the end.
Okay. All right, great. All right. Photo number 8 is the second young female. She's 15 and her name is Tuulikki Mäki. She has kind of a fuzzy photograph. I have to apologize for that. That's all I have. What does young Tuulikki tell you, Darcy?
Well, she comes across a little sad, okay? Maybe not as popular as the first girl was.
Okay.
And very much, what's the word I want to use? I would say a little troubled, but again, not to the point that, how do you word it? Not to the point that she's suicidal or anything.
Okay.
More like she wants more out of life.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That she wants more out of life than what she has right now.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, does make sense. And sadly, what is the answer to that?
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, she's dead too during all this.
Okay.
And she just has like her wide set of eyes are like deers in a headlight, right?
Yep,
That's
for
what
sure.
it seems like. Okay, when you look at her, right? When you're looking at her, she's got, what do you call it, where it comes down, rectangular face?
Yes, she has a rectangular face, I would
Okay.
say.
And I would say she's younger for her years than she actually is.
Okay.
Where the other girl felt more mature, this one feels like she'll go along with the crowd because that's what's expected.
Okay, I would agree with you, even though they're both 15, Tuulikki looks a young 15 and Ermeli looks an older 15, I guess if one could say
Yeah.
that. I agree with you there.
That's what I would say is, I really like her face. She would be an interesting subject if you wanted to ever really draw someone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's such a lousy picture. It's too bad because she does seem to have a very interesting face. We're missing 90% of it.
Yeah. But I would say she's also dead, but there's something else about her. But I'm not 100% sure where I'm going with this. Just trying to see if she'll talk a little bit.
That would be good.
I know. Can I ask, because their heads feel like they're muddled?
Uh-huh.
Okay, like when you're talking to someone and you can tell they're not really in the conversation.
Yeah.
Did they sustain head injuries?
Say that again.
Did they sustain head injuries?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. Let's move to our last young person, photo number 9. His name is Seppo Boisman. He's Tuulikki's boyfriend. He's 18 as well. Do you get any sense of Seppo?
Well, he's definitely dead.
Oh, he is he?
That's what it feels like.
Okay.
He makes me feel like I should run in the other direction.
Really? So you get a sense you're a bit frightened of him,
He
or
just,
you don't think?
no, I think he just has that, like, okay, I can go hand to fist to cup with someone, like, like the old movies where like West Side Story.
Yep.
He just strikes me as that.
Well, he certainly would. He looks to me like not ferocious, because that's too strong a term.
That's
Man.
not, he's not ferocious.
But he'd stand his ground.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's determined, that's for sure. He looks like a very determined young man.
maybe that's the word we should use, is that he's determined to get his way in life.
Is he? Okay. And sadly, he didn't either, you're saying.
No,
Okay, so we have our 4 young people. You told me that one was a bear, one was a lion, one was a wolf, and one was a hummingbird. Let's first knock off those. Who's what?
okay, the hummingbird is
Tulikki?
the bear, well, the bear would be, strangely enough, what did I say? Bear,
Lion, wolf, and hummingbird.
okay. She's the hummingbird.
Tulikki,
Yeah.
not Yep, gotcha.
Ermely is the lion.
Is she? Okay.
Okay, because she knows what she wants. The
Okay.
bear is the last voice, Stipple,
Seppo, yeah. Okay.
and
Niels.
Niels is the wolf.
Okay, so why is Niels a wolf?
Well, because wolves tend to have this pack mentality that, you're mine.
Ah,
Eagles, swans, and wolves are supposed to mate for life.
yeah.
That's how I see them.
Okay, that's really interesting, and it's leading into more into our story. It's quite remarkable. Second thing, you said these 4 animals. Then the second thing was you said one person remained alive, and you named that person as
Niels,
the wolf.
the
Okay,
wolf.
he's still alive.
Yes.
Now, how do you know that?
Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna say, look in his eyes.
I'm looking in his eyes.
Okay, if you look at the pictures, everyone's eyes are a little dull for me except his.
Okay. Oh, I see. His eyes are brighter,
Yes.
and that gives you a sense of life.
Yeah, well, he's probably dead now, but
Yes. Well, this is what's so interesting. Well, the people are all dead. Of course, we've talked about that before. When you're talking to me, we're dealing with dead people, and they're long dead, and sometimes they're dead for 5 minutes in our storyline, but they've been long dead to us as a society, and still you're able to somehow negotiate that they're dead, but they're not quite dead as long as the other ones are dead. I mean, it just blows me away.
because I'm putting myself in that time frame. Okay.
Right.
I have
Okay.
to remove the energy I have here and move it over to the other time frame so I can have a look from that perspective, not from this perspective.
Wow. You can do that?
Yeah.
God, you're amazing. God, I'm just blown away. Okay, so Niels is alive, the wolf. You also said one of the 2 gals, Ermely or Tulikki, was more badly injured.
The first one, Ermeline.
And again, how do you know that?
Because I don't know, she has more expression than the other girl. The other girl, like, she's flat, like
Right.
she would have died, probably was hit, but Emily has more done to her.
Wow. Well, that's really truly remarkable, Darcy, and you'll find out quite shortly that you're really close to the facts here. It's amazing. So we are in the midst of a real life outdoor slasher movie. There's no doubt. We have a boogeyman attacking teenagers in the the dead of night. But this isn't Hollywood fiction. This was a true horrific event that actually happened. So I'm going to talk to you about the discovery. You've now nailed amazingly well the fact that there were 4 young people, that one person didn't die. You are saying one person didn't die, and the young man Niels, and one of the 2 women, young girls, was more brutally attacked than the other. So on the morning of June the 5th, 1960, some young boys were bird watching nearby, and they spotted a blonde man walking away from this campsite early in the morning. Now, it wasn't until about 11 a.m. that a jogger who was swimming and then jogging a bit came into their actual campsite and discovered the bodies and notified the police. So I was going to ask you, what did the jogger find? But you pretty well nailed it. But I will say to you, what do you see now that we've talked about this? What do you think the jogger came upon?
Probably the death scene, like the people inside and outside of the tent.
Okay, very interesting choice of words there. Inside and outside of a tent. Why do you use inside and outside? I would normally think 4 people are sleeping in a tent. 4 people would be found dead in a tent or injured in a tent.
Okay.
Why not say that?
Mainly because the feeling of trying to either get away from something, like if this was a Hollywood movie, those kids would have scattered in all different directions. So maybe survival, or maybe they were already outside of the tent, going to the loo, okay, and surprised upon.
Okay, well, let's have a look at picture number 10. We're going to see the close-up of some police discussing the scene. Now, I don't know if that provides you with any information or not.
No, just that they're trying to figure stuff out, that they seem to be a little lost in the process.
Yeah, they certainly do. So do you have a sense of the attack, of the assault on these people?
Just basically, like I said, I keep seeing the hook, so I'm figuring sharp blade, blunt instrument, and they would have had to either be trapped in there or semi-asleep, because I couldn't imagine them just laying there and taking it.
Exactly, yeah. Well, have a look at photo number 11. It's not a great shot, I admit. It's another shot of the tent, and they repitched it, and it's from a slightly different angle than we saw earlier, more from the front, I think. That'd be my guess.
But it looks closed.
Yes, it does look like the flap is closed. Now that might be, in fact, the back. I don't really know, but do you get anything out of that?
Not really.
Okay. Have a look at the next one. I think you will get something from it. I got to warn you, it's a little more graphic, even though it's a really grainy black and white photograph. I think is the actual campsite as they discovered
the bodies.
So have a look at photo number 12, and you'll see there are arrows. It's hard to see, but there are arrows coming down in the picture pointing to, I think, 4 possible bodies. It's hard to tell. I don't know. There's no information on those arrows there. But you can also notice mounds that could be bodies.
Yeah.
You also see in the kind of where I circled in the middle to the left, a leg, left leg and boot. That's visible. And behind, see a motorbike.
Yeah.
Now I've circled the latter 2 in red. So this is quite a disturbing photograph, in my opinion. What do you make out of it?
Well, I think the arrows are pointing to what is exposed, or where maybe the things were ripped and stuff, or the
Okay.
injuries. Interesting, the motorcycles there, someone else was there, and like, why wouldn't they take the motorcycle to get out of there?
Good question.
And I take it that that's their overnight bags, or else it's, well, one looks like it's covered in blood and the other one, not too sure what it is.
Yeah. Well, you were very accurate about what happened to the young people, in that Ermelie Borkland was nude from the waist down. She was stabbed and she was bludgeoned with unknown objects. They were never found. However, a knife and a blunt object were used. She had the worst injuries of all four victims, as you claim, and many knife strikes into her body after she was dead. At the top of our show, you talked about a rage. That to me is indicative of someone enraged. You continue to kill when the person is long dead. Okay?
That's normally established to crime of passion too.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm wondering, how your head's taking that at the moment. Because we'll have to see what you think had actually happened here. We have Ermelie on top of the tent. We have Tuliki and Seppo located inside the collapsed tent. Like Ermelie, they were both dead from multiple wounds, stabbed, and blunt object strikes. Now, Niels was also on top of the tent beside his girlfriend. What do you think happened to Niels?
Well, I know he didn't die.
Correct.
But I would say he's injured, but not to the extent of everyone else. The interesting question. Any chance he injured himself?
There's the interesting question. We will continue on that as we go through the storyline. Yes, Darcy.
Okay.
I think you're coming very close to the bone here. Yes, Niels survived. He was found on top of the tent beside his girlfriend, as I said. He had multiple injuries, including some stab wounds, a concussion, a broken jaw, deep knife wound to his face, his forehead actually, but he was alive. Now, the time of death was roughly determined to be sometime between 4 and 6 a.m. that morning, so about 6 hours before they were discovered. They had a couple of other relevant facts I'll mention to you, a little bit peculiar. There were 2 motorbikes. You only see one there. The keys to the 2 bikes were stolen. Wallets with money were stolen. Some clothes taken. Bozeman's leather jacket and Niels's shoes. These items were found about a half a mile away from the crime scene. Much of the clothing that was found was soaked in blood, along with Niels's shoes. Some things were missing and never discovered in the future because they had such poor management of the crime scene. However, it was determined a little later that the tracks of blood discovered, and they were discovered at the campsite, were made by someone wearing Niels's shoes. Okay? Now, anything coming to you after those comments?
Well, if they were wearing his shoes, like, did he do it? Like, why would you put on someone else's shoes? You already got your shoes on.
I don't know. That's a good question. Now, what's interesting is Niels wasn't really considered a suspect.
Well, I can see why, if he was injured and everything.
Right?
Okay.
And the crime scene wasn't managed well. The police came and they left and they didn't seal it up. And most of the place was trampled by, tourists and guests. And much of the stuff that was stolen was never recovered. But Niels said he had no memory of the attack. And here I'll give you a photo of him just after the attack in a hospital. So photo number 13, there's poor Niels, because he does look in bad shape. What do you take from that photograph?
Now, this is going to sound crazy, but smug.
So you're thinking Niels could be guilty?
Or maybe he's just smug that he's alive.
Yeah, maybe he's just bloody happy he's alive. Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. But he does look badly injured there.
Well, yeah, he does. Looks like his jaw's in a cast. Is that right?
Yeah, his eyes are wrecked, swollen, like he's in bad shape.
He is.
He was questioned thoroughly, okay? He says he thinks he was attacked first and then presumed dead. He said the attacker was wearing black and bright red. The people in general said he was guilty, that in fact he and Seppo had an argument over one of the girls, and that Seppo is perhaps hit him in the jaw, broke his jaw. They struggle. Niels kills Seppo, perhaps, obviously, hopefully by accident, then realizes what he's done and has to kill the two young women in order to save his neck. What do you think of that theory?
That's not a bad theory, because we know who they were fighting over.
Were they fighting over Irma Lee?
Yes.
Because she was a more attractive?
Not just more attractive, more, where you're outgoing, you're funny,
She was more vibrant.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the young gal, as you said, Tuliki was a bit younger and not quite perhaps as colorful a personality.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there were a number of other suspects, and as is often the case in these instances, several people confessed to doing this completely erroneously. They have alibis and were, fairly quickly ruled out. However, we have 3 possibilities for a suspect other than Niels. So I have any sense of any of them before we get into the details?
Well, you did mention that the young boy saw someone with blonde hair.
Correct.
So the local guy probably?
Yeah.
Well, both of them should be fairly local. I don't think they would be far away from that area. But that would be my guess, is that people who have already maybe been convicted of assault, or like, I keep hearing 2, you say several, but several could be more than 2. But I feel like one might have had a little darker hair, like dark blonde, and the other one may be the blonde person.
Okay, are you saying that 2 people might have been involved in this?
No, I'm saying that there's 2 other suspects.
Okay, cool. All right, well, one suspect was a man named Carl Gillstrom, and he owned a kiosk on the lake and was known for his unjustified hostility towards children and campers. And some claimed that he chucked stones at them and tore at their tents. Now, to me, it seems a bit ridiculous, because if he ran a kiosk, these people would be his customers. So he might have been a nasty old man or a nasty man, and maybe not old, nasty man, but I don't think he would necessarily, berate all his customers, because it wouldn't be really good for business.
And not only that, given that they were 15, 18, anyone over that is old.
Yeah, that's true. Now, he supposedly, when he was drunk a little bit later, admitted to a neighbor that he killed the teens. Then he denies saying this. His wife gave him an alibi. Then later, she took the alibi away, saying that he told her if she didn't give him an alibi, he would kill her.
Yeah.
Got no photo of Carl, but what do you think of what I've told you about Carl as a possible suspect?
No.
Okay, fair enough. But we do have a tantalizing thing that happened to Carl. In 1969, so 9 years later, he confesses to another friend and asks this friend what he should do. The friend says to him, if you've done this, you should go and drown yourself, because you're going to be spending the rest of your life in prison. What do you think Carl then does?
He drowns himself.
Are you just saying that, or are you thinking that?
I'm thinking it. He drowns himself.
For a few hours later, he drowns himself in Lake Bodom. What does that tell you? Is he guilty?
No, he's just guilty of something else.
Okay, he probably was. Now, our second suspect, and this is interesting, you said 2 suspects, and you could be right, because this suspect is kind of a real phantom, I have to say. It's a fascinating tease. He's only known by a couple of, 4 composite sketches prepared from Niels Gustafsson's evidence while given under hypnosis, just after the attacks. So have a look at photo 14, which shows 4 composite sketches of this supposed guy that Niels says was the attacker. What do you make out of this guy?
No.
Okay, they're all supposed to be the same guy.
But they all look different.
Well,
the only thing they have in common is maybe those scary eyes.
Yeah, very scary eyes, eh? And a very determined chin.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why there are four, different versions of Niels's ideas of who's attacked, but this is what came out of his hypnotic state. So these four guys, you're saying no to any of them, but what's kind of cool is nobody recognizes them at all at the time. They're like nobody recognizes. But something really odd happens. At one of the funerals for one of the young people, someone takes a shot, a picture of the people attending the funeral. And if you look at photo 15, you'll see that lo and behold, and one of the sketches is on the side so you can kind of get the fact that they compare. Lo and behold, in the center of that photograph, circled, who do you see?
Yeah, the guy.
The guy with the weird eyes and chin.
Yeah, except that he's got a beard.
Well, I don't know if it's a beard or it's just very poor light there, like the way the photograph is. It's a bit of darkness underneath. It could be a shadow. Not a very good photograph. No. But it's him, don't you think?
I would say yes.
Yeah. Well, again, he wasn't known at the time of the funeral, so nobody could talk to him. Nobody claims to know who he was. So, although he's a fascinating tease, he's a phantom. He was never followed up because they couldn't figure out who he was. So then we go on to the next photograph, which is photograph number 16. Now, this is a fellow named Hans Osman. You'll see it at the bottom of the photograph. What do you, and it's not a very good photograph, but I can tell you up front, Hans is blonde.
Okay, well, okay, this is the dirty blonde I was seeing.
Okay.
He's got the right eyes.
Why do you say, what, based on that guy's photo, based on the sketches, you think?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. Right eyes, but I don't feel this is the guy.
Okay. Well, he was supposedly a former KGB spy, if you believe it, who was living in Finland in the 50s and 60s. The funny thing about Hans is that the next morning following the murders, he shows up at the Helsinki hospital acting aggressively and wearing clothes covered in red stains. Now, why he went to the hospital, I don't know. What his injuries were, or he was having a psychotic state, I don't know. I wasn't able to find that out. But he's a good fit for our murderer because he had, at the time, long, dirty blonde hair. He cut that off shortly after these murders. He lived within 5 clicks of the lake, and he was a suspect in other homicides, shall we say.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, the police thought he had a solid alibi. So there were no tests to determine whether the stains on his clothes were blood. But he did remain a favorite suspect, but he was never arrested. What do you think of Hans?
Oh, I'm pretty sure he's guilty of other crimes. Okay. But okay. I don't feel he would have attacked children.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Well, when you say other crimes, then who's he attacking? Or what other crimes is he committing?
I'm pretty sure he's got blood on his hands.
He's murdered somebody?
Yeah. But then it could have been during the war.
True. Very true. Okay. Well, so you're saying Hans is out?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Niels continues throughout his life to deny any involvement in the attacks. He says he has no memory. Due to his injuries, it was felt that he couldn't have conducted all that was done, plus carry the stuff the half a mile away and pretend to bury it or partially bury it and come back to the crime scene. He went on to marry and he fathered 2 children. Then in 2004, something very startling happened. Any thoughts on that?
Well, let's see. We have DNA, we have crime scene analysis now. So they must have found something that would link him to it.
And are you really feeling that he was linked to it?
Yes, I do feel he was linked to it. Now, did it stick? Probably not, but I do feel he was linked.
And why do you say it didn't stick?
No, the evidence was tampered. I mean, they didn't contain the crime scene. They didn't think of him as a suspect, so they never tested for anything.
Right. Okay, well.
Lack of evidence.
That's amazing because he was arrested at age 62 for the murders. the authorities had claimed to always suspect him, but never had enough evidence. However, something changed in the 2005 trial, which, as you can imagine, was a national media circus. The police said Niels's shoes had been worn by the killer. And as you said, why would you wear someone else's shoes? But anyway, his shoes were worn by the killer, and that the three teenagers' blood, the three dead victims' blood was on his shoes. Not a drop of blood of Niels's was on the shoes. The police thought that was significant and indicative of his guilt. I don't really know. Seems kind of hard to not get blood on your shoes and then get blood on your shoes, but they thought it was suggestive of his being guilty. I'd like you to look at a photo number 17, and you'll see Niels as a grown man. He was very calm and reserved throughout the trial. Did he deliberately and cold-bloodedly kill his three friends, Darcy, by stabbing and striking them through a canvas tent? Faked his own injuries in June 5th, 1960?
Well, let's put it like this. Looking at his photo, he really doesn't have any memories of it. But depending on the state of the injuries he applied to himself, he could have compartmentalized them. Okay. But when I look at him, it's like there's a blank slate. Where I said earlier, that feeling of being smugged, here it's more a feeling of unfairness.
Oh, like he's being mistreated?
Yeah.
And is that a legitimate feeling, or is that, you're thinking he's thinking that because he has no memory?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the prosecution's theory was, like I mentioned previously, that Niels and Seppo fought probably over Ermelie. That Seppo broke Niels's jaw and face bone. And this possibility they put forward because it was Niels's girlfriend who was more viciously attacked, as you said. They claimed that then Niels, of course, panicked, stabbed, and then beat Seppo to death. And in a panic and save his own skin, did the same thing to the two young women. And in particularly was more vicious to his own girlfriend. So you think that's what happened?
I think there's a very good chance that's what happened, but there's something stumping me.
Okay.
Now, obviously, they never tested his clothes to see if he had any of their blood on his clothes, but they noticed not on his shoes. So did the boys leave the shoes outside the tent when they crawled in for the night? And so was the fight before the shoes came back on? If all he had at one point was the broken jaw and the face break, well, if he was in a rage and they fought, then I can see how he could take their stuff, move it down there, put on different clothes, because obviously they didn't test for blood on all those clothes, and come back, take his shoes off, do the deed. But when you say it out like that, it's like, well, then there's a sliver of doubt. So I can see why he was acquitted.
Okay, you think he was acquitted?
Yeah.
Well, again, you nailed it tonight. A woman came forward 4 decades after this happened, and only because they say she was going to be interviewed for a television documentary, and she claims to have Niels and Seppo came to visit her in her tent, and that Niels was very aggressive and very drunk. That was pretty well dismissed out of hand because, she was really self-serving, I think most people thought. And why didn't she come forward at the time? She didn't, okay? So his defense said Niels had no motive, there was no problems between him and Seppo and the girlfriends, that he was in the tent, and his blood was found inside the tent. Even though he was found when the bodies were discovered, he had ended up on top of the tent. His blood was found inside the tent, and that his injuries, they say, were too great for him to have completed the crime scene and the movement of the clothes and come back. And the lawyer said he was a victim and he was not guilty. And the verdict was announced, just as you said, he was acquitted. And I think, as you said, due to lack of evidence, although I don't know if they felt he was guilty and just didn't have the evidence, or they didn't feel he was guilty at all. But certainly there was insufficient evidence to convict him. And probably as a result of the very poor crime scene management at the time, and I think the natural belief that he was not guilty when they discovered him, because it's just such a horrific thing to think that he could have done that at the time. It's hard for your mind to go there.
Yeah.
And because he'd spent more than a year in prison when they arrested him before his trial, they gave him almost 50,000 euros for pain and suffering. So that's the story of the boogeyman of Lake Bodom. And I want you to look at the last photograph, which is our 4 young people together. It's a group shot of the same shots we've seen earlier. What do you make of any of them now?
The same. Now, interesting that there is one, but I said this about Steppo, is that he strikes me as the kind of person who I can do fisticuffs, and that still stands out here. You know, out of the 2 of them, I would have said he'd win any kind of fight if he really put his mind to it. But yeah, it's really interesting. When I look at them this way, I would have said he should have been the one who was alive, but he's not. So,
well, maybe Neil's got a lucky, punch in or grabbed a rock and hit him on the head or something. And no matter how determined and a good fisticuff fighter you are, if you get a rock slammed into your head, you're going to go down.
Yeah, you are.
So when you first saw Niels and you see him now, do you see someone who could commit a horrendous triple homicide like this after, can you see him becoming so enraged?
Because he's so quiet, he's so collective, I could say yes.
Because he would explode.
Yeah. Hold it in until the last minute. And then, like I said, at the beginning, crime of passion.
Yep.
Okay. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, just like the law did, and say that maybe there was someone else there, but it's the idea that someone would put your shoes on to kill the other 3. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of is, it doesn't make any sense at all, but if the person came and was perhaps swimming, or not, somebody was wearing shoes because they were camping or something, they could have come upon the scene, done the deed, and put the shoes on, perhaps to go and dump the stuff and come back. And therefore the blood got on them, but not necessarily got on them during the actual attack.
But then why didn't Neil's blood? Because he would have stabbed Neil too.
Absolutely, you're right. So that theory kind of gets shot down. So I can't see it. The shoes is very intriguing.
Yeah, the shoes are intriguing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You were remarkable tonight. You really nailed them so early. And I just love the fact that you found 4 creatures to represent our 4 people, that you knew right up front that 3 of the 4 died. You said 1 person didn't die. You knew they were killed not only with a knife, stab wounds, but also blunt objects. You mentioned the personal rage really early on, and it definitely is that some kind of horrendous emotion went on here to do this to people.
Yeah.
Knew that Niels was the one who was alive, and you also knew that Ermelie was the gal who had the most injuries. So you've done spectacularly well tonight.
Well, I wasn't 100% sure about her until I saw the other girl.
Yes, but I'm glad you waited, because that's, you got to be able to see all the evidence before say to you, give us your idea. So well done. That's just brilliant.
All right.
If you enjoyed this episode, you may appreciate our take on another bizarre and unsolved camping murder mystery I called Death in Dyatlov Pass. As usual, Darcy's in top form, divining how 9 backcountry skiers met their grisly and inexplicable deaths in the dead of winter in northern Russia over 6 decades ago. It's episode 16 on our webpage, located at www.radiosidney.ca, along with over 30 compelling episodes of Seeing Dead People. We hope you've enjoyed listening to Seeing Dead People. Whatever's going on in Darcy's head, I think is so cool and astonishing. We'd love to hear from you with questions for Darcy about her psychic process or suggestions for other mystifying situations you would like us to investigate. So please, shoot us an email to info@radiosidney.ca with Seeing Dead People in the subject line. New episodes of Seeing Dead People will emerge on the first Saturday of every month and will also be available as a downloadable podcast on soundcloud.com for your convenience. Seeing Dead People airs online at radiosidney.ca every Saturday night at 8 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10 a.m., both Pacific Standard Time. Thanks so much for listening to Seeing Dead People. I really dig researching, writing, and communicating with Darcy and her otherworldly contacts. So until the next time, remember, Seeing Dead People is a blast with Goosebumps Guaranteed.
This has been a program of Radio Sydney.